What's up, Coach?
What up?
Welcome into another episode of What's Up, Coach? Today, joined by Justin Terranova, head coach of the Methodist University men's soccer team. Coach, how's it going?
Great. Summertime. Enjoying time with the family, recharging the batteries, getting ready for a big season ahead of us.
So, similarly to Coach Mayday, who we interviewed in our last episode, you are a Methodist University alum. How did a kid from Connecticut find his way to Fayetteville, North Carolina?
That's a great question. It's a long story. I'll try to make it short. When I was 17, I went to Europe on a trip with a team, and the coach of the team was Matthew Fuhr, and he happened to live in Greensboro, North Carolina, and was obviously a friend of Alan Dawson, who was the coach of Methodist. So I was encouraged to go to UNC Greensboro, applied, got accepted, went on my trip. And when I went on my visit, Michael Parker, the coach of UNC Greensboro, basically he told me I could be on the team, which was wonderful, and I'm appreciative of that. But then he said, but if you really want to play, meaning you can be on my team, but you're not going to play, you should go visit Methodist College, which it was back then, and meet Alan Dawson. And I had no idea where Methodist was, but it just happened to be 2 hours away from Greensboro, and I was in Greensboro. So Coach Parker encouraged me to come down to Fayetteville right then and there, and I left, met Coach Dawson, spent 3 or 4 hours on campus, met Coach, and the building that we're sitting in right now had just been built. It was 1992, so this building was built in 1991, and the pitch was looking wonderful. The building was, the Taj Mahal of soccer, and when I saw it and I met Coach Dawson, I just knew that I wanted to be here and play for him, and it was the best decision that I ever made. I came here with aspirations of starting, and I was lucky enough to do that. So Coach Dawson paved the way for me, and here I am today. So very appreciative of those guys like Matt Fuhr and Michael Parker and Alan Dawson to show me the way and help me get here to Methodist.
So as you mentioned, you were a starter. You were the goalkeeper from 92 to 95. Walk me through your career as a player at Methodist. I know there's a lot to unpack, but what stands out?
What stands out? My first game was at Lynchburg. It was pouring rain like it is today, and I didn't start. And Coach Dawson asked me to warm up at halftime, and it was pouring down rain. I mean, literally pouring down rain like it is right now. Could hardly see the pitch. The pitch was full of water, and he subbed me on at halftime, and it was pouring rain. And about 15 minutes into the second half, the game got called because it was pouring down rain. So that was my debut. It wasn't a memorable one at all. It was in the pouring rain. I think he was testing me. I know him, and he likes to do that. But, my freshman year, we had an amazing year. We made a run all the way to the quarterfinals of the national championship. We ended up losing at home to Ohio Wesleyan in overtime. If we had won that game, we would have hosted the Final Four that year. That was a given. We had hosted everything up until that. And then, obviously the second and third year, we had won the conference every year. Second and third year got knocked out in the first round, which wasn't what we had hoped for. But to be honest, those weren't our best teams. Then my senior year, we put together an amazing squad. Coach Dawson did an amazing job recruiting some amazing players from overseas. And then we were ranked number 1 in the nation after the first weekend. We beat Ohio Wesleyan away, and then came home and were ranked number 1 all season. undefeated going into the national tournament, and hosted. We had some redemption against Virginia Wesleyan, who had beaten us 2 years before, 4-1, and then we ran to the semifinals with a really amazing game actually in St. Louis against Washington. We won in overtime. Michael Scobie scored the winner, and then we would figure that we would have hosted the Final Four, but we didn't because of the NCAA 500-mile rule. We got flown to Massachusetts. In Fayetteville, the weekend of the Final Four, it was 70 and sunny, but in Massachusetts, it was snowing. So we ended up winning the semifinal. We won 3-0 against Chapman from California. And then we ended up playing the host, Williams from Massachusetts, in the final. And they had been in the final the year before and lost. And their captain, Matthew Schaffer, had lymphoma, ended up passing away like 2 months after the final. But they ended up winning, beating us 2-1 in the final. I think it was kind of meant to be for him and them. Unfortunately for us, it wasn't meant to be. It was 0-0 at halftime, and we gave away 2 goals off crosses, and then scored a really nice goal to get back in it. Had some chances in the end, but just couldn't score. And, obviously disappointed that was our ultimate goal, but really that's one of the reasons that I'm here. That drives me. It still drives me to this day, and I speak about that to recruits all the time. We want to, and we feel like we can be in the national tournament and compete for a national championship. And I think that is becoming more realistic for us now that we've done all the additions to, our soccer stadium and spent $1 million on the soccer stadium. So yeah, I mean, what an amazing career. Coach Dawson was so wonderful to me. I was blessed to have amazing teammates, All-Americans, everyone from, Kenneth Hoey to Michael Scobie to Kari Rennison, just amazing players around me in this locker room. I was lucky enough to sit right there for 4 years, and I feel like this locker room has a lot of tradition, and that we were part of that tradition. So
a couple years after your playing career ended, you became an assistant coach at a Division I school, Old Dominion University. Tell me about how that came to be and who your mentor was that you coached under there.
Well, it came to be because of my wife, Jeanette, who I met here at Methodist. I was here accumulating my coaching badges, and that was under the advice of my mentor, Alan Dawson, who had given me, a pathway and said, hey, this is what you need to do. And so I started accumulating my coaching badges, and I had started coaching youth teams at the Jordan Soccer Complex. And I was waiting for Jeanette to graduate. She was a year behind us. And I had applied to several colleges, and I had 2 interviews. I got offered the job at SUNY Plattsburgh, which is basically in Canada. And then I got an interview at Old Dominion with Coach Dawson, and I got offered the job there. Jeanette basically said, if you're going to Canada, I'm not coming. So if you want to go to Norfolk, Old Dominion, then I'll go with you. And I said, that's what we're going to do. And so I went to Old Dominion with Coach Dawson. Him and his wife, Mary, gave Jeanette and I an opportunity to come and work for them and be part of their family and help raise their kids. Be in that environment was a huge thing for me, and just being able to make mistakes and be groomed by one of the best college soccer coaches ever. Even though I played for Coach, I think working for him is a whole nother ball of wax. And, to be able to be his peer and be next to him, it was just a amazing experience. And then Jeanette and I got married in Norfolk, so we're very fond of Norfolk and everything that the Dawsons gave to us. To be honest, I get choked up thinking about the whole thing. Um, we had a great run there. We didn't win and get into the NCAA tournament when I was there, but we progressed the team for sure. And as soon as I came back to Methodist in 2002, they made the NCAA tournament that year. And obviously, I think they've been in it so many times since. But just proof that Coach has been an amazing college soccer coach for our university and for also Old Dominion. You don't find many guys like him who've only been in two places and been so successful in both. And so just lucky that I was the guy that got picked to be there next to him. And so, just thankful for that opportunity. And here we are 21 years later. And I think that's fitting.
In 2012, you took the team back to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Took 10 years.
Yeah, it might not have happened as quickly as you wanted to, but what did it feel like to finally to bring the team back to the place where you had 4 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, that's always our goal, to be in the NCAA tournament. And I think we've been in, I want to say, 17 conference semifinals and 5 finals. We had been in the semifinals several years in that 10 years prior to my 2002 to 2012. We've been in the semifinals, I think, almost every year, but just couldn't get over the hump, and been to the final actually and lost. Obviously, we had Christopher Newport and difficult teams in our way. But things just kind of aligned really well in 2012. And, Eric McGinnis and Eirik Nordseth and Shane Davis, those guys that gave me 4 years and really culminated that moment in 2012. For us, good things happened in the semifinals. We won in penalties, when in the year before we had lost in penalties. And then Greensboro upset Christopher Newport in the other semifinal. And so making it to the final, it just kind of seemed like we were gonna do it. It was meant to be. And so we won it that year. And unfortunately, the NCAA sent us on a 489-mile journey on a bus to Philadelphia, which, didn't turn out the way we wanted. But I think we were good enough to go much farther in that tournament. It was just the way the NCAA set us up in terms of who we had to go play where. So, but really fond of that first championship team and the guys that won it. Very determined way of winning. Blue-collar guys that won because they weren't going to let anything get in their way. So I'm thankful for those guys for sure.
Tell me a little bit more about your family. You mentioned your wife, who's also a Methodist alum. Your kids must be pretty big Monarchs fans.
Huge. Sam, 19. Olivia is 15. Both are soccer players, of course. Both are goalkeepers, just like me. I did not plan that, I promise. My wife would tell you that I did, but I didn't. They're both very accomplished goalkeepers. So, yes, I mean, they're the biggest fans. They're the ones watching all the time, and whether they're actually physically here or they're more recently having to travel around to go to their own practices or to games, and they can't be at our games, they're always watching now on their phone. Before maybe it was on the computer. But I think they're probably the most disappointed when the feed is not good, because then they can't get an accurate description of what's going on in the game. But, Jeanette is the number one fan. I think that Samuel would have loved to come to Methodist. Fortunately, his career has taken him on a higher pathway in terms of playing, Division I for NC State. And then Olivia is an accomplished goalkeeper as well, and she looks like she's tracking to probably play Division I as well. So we're super proud of both of them. But yeah, they're the number one fans for sure, and probably the most competent fans. They'll tell you like it is. Whether it was good or bad, they'll tell you like it is. So,
Gonna ask you just a couple of rapid response questions before we look ahead at the next season. Name a hobby or skill outside of soccer that you have.
I'm a skilled landscaper. If you didn't know that about me, if you came to my house, you would understand. But from a young age, I was always in the yard cleaning, mowing. I actually, in the summer times when I went home from college to make money, I worked for a landscape company and made, $3,000-$4,000 in a summer to bring back to school to spend. And I've kind of kept that in my sights as I've owned houses. I've always took a ton of pride in what the yard looked like. I think I got that from my parents. And, I'm to this day in the yard making it look the best it can look, and projects. And I love that about owning a house. And I think Coach Dawson was like that too. So I was encouraged, this is a good thing to have in your pocket. And I also kind of use it as a release as well. To sweat, to get out there and do physically, demanding things so that I can stay healthy. So yeah, I'm doing that as much as I can when in my free time. Yeah.
All right, one more. Hypothetically, men's soccer doesn't exist. What sport would you have liked to have had a successful career playing and coaching in if men's soccer was not a thing?
I've got a couple. Hockey was where I grew up in Connecticut, in Ridgefield. We had a hockey rink. Now, there wasn't a hockey rink in every town, so all the towns came to us. And so we were amazing at hockey. Ridgefield hockey is legendary. And my friends were on the hockey team. My parents kind of steered me away from hockey because it was very expensive. But I would have loved to play hockey. I actually grew up in the hockey rink. The soccer field was here and the hockey rink was here. My best friend, Chris Leonard, was really good at hockey. So if I wasn't on the soccer field, I was in the hockey rink, and we were playing street hockey all the time. And of course, I got thrown in goal. And my friends wanted me to be a hockey goalkeeper as well. But, obviously I didn't do it, but I would have loved to do that. So now the other sport that you're going to be surprised about is equestrian, okay? Because I'm sure none of the coaches are going to say that. Because I grew up in a town that had horse farms. So I was riding from 5 years old all the way up to 13, where I stopped to play soccer on a higher level of soccer. But I was one of the top riders in the Northeast, in the state of Connecticut, in the Northeast at that age. And the kids I was riding with, who I was already better than, actually made it to the Olympics for equestrian. So I could have tracked that way. We decided to go away from it. Another very expensive sport. But I haven't been on a horse since I was 13.
That was what I was going to ask you next. Had you ridden since then?
No, but I bet I could. I bet if you put me on a horse, I'd be all right. Yeah.
All right, let's look ahead to this upcoming season. You guys start with a 3-game homestand against Johnson & Wales, Randolph, and Ferrum. What are you looking forward to about opening the season at home?
Yeah, super excited about that. I mean, we have a great team coming back, really solid core, starters in every position. And then I believe that Evan Burgos and I, my assistant coach, and Kenneth Perkinson, we did an amazing job bringing in a whole new core of players for the future. And I think that you're going to see a big influence from several of those players into the team. So, I think that put that together with starting with a homestand is a great equation for us so we can get started. I think when you have a good start to the season, that belief grows. And when it grows like that, then you have a good chance of being successful long term with that. So starting at home is always a good thing. Obviously, the ODAC teams coming in, those are always going to be tough opponents. Johnson and Wales, we played last year, very difficult, well-organized team. So looking forward to some challenges, but they're home. So I think when you're home, you should have an advantage. And I know the boys are going to be fired up for that game. So we'll be ready.
You open the conference slate with a game against Mary Baldwin University. You guys beat them last season. What's it looking like to be able to beat them again this year?
Yeah, I mean, going away to play them is always a difficult challenge. So I've got that in the back of my mind. We know what it's like to go there and play there. So I'm sure they're going to be fired up for us coming there. We started to build a little bit of a rivalry, exchanging wins in consecutive years. So I'm sure the guys will be ready for that game, being that it's the first conference game. We'll have our goals and our point totals that we need to achieve, and we'll know that that's an important game on the road to start the season. So looking forward to it.
You guys wrap up the regular season with 3 out of your last 4 games being at home. Greensboro is the finale. Methodist's overall record against Greensboro is 25-25-7. Dead even. But you guys have unfortunately been on the losing end for the last several matchups. What's it going to take to get back in the win column against Greensboro and give Methodist a slight edge in that overall record?
Yeah, well, you brought it up. That's our rival, long-time rival. Since I was a player, we were told that this is our rival and you need to be ready for this game. So 25-25-7 seems fitting for a rival. We're home, so I think we have an advantage. Last year was a difficult game for us because we had several injuries. We also had 2 players suspended for cards. So we didn't play that game with a full squad last year. So hopefully by the time we get to that, and it is the last game, so that is always a factor. Injuries, suspensions, and depth is the key to winning that game when you get to that point in the season. So I think being at home is an advantage. I think we have built our depth. I think we have a lot more depth than we did last year. So I think going into that game, knowing that it's going to be a very important game, we should be prepared. It's at home. It's the last game of the season. Most likely, it's going to be a very important game in terms of points to finish in a certain place in the table. So we'll see what that outcome is by the time we get there. But the boys will be fired up. There's no doubt about that.
All right. Well, Coach, that wraps it up. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, this is cool. This is going to be an amazing year, and I'm really looking forward to it. And that has solely to do with the amazing people that are in this room. My assistant coaches, Ken and Evan, are awesome. Daniel Megan, one of our former captains, joining us next year on staff. Obviously, Aaron takes care of everybody. But the leadership of, Hudson and Chris, our captains, and the amazing young players in the room, couldn't ask for more. I know you guys are going to be excited to see us play. And then I think next year we'll be there competing for the championship, and that's our goal. And I look forward to taking that on. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well said. Best of luck. Thanks to those of you who have tuned in. We appreciate it. Go Monarchs.
Go Monarchs.